Welcome to TechFest 2020. We hope to share with you lessons learned during COVID-19, innovations we have accelerated, and how we are preparing our institution for the post-pandemic teaching, learning, and working environment. Kicking off our programming this morning is a panel discussion, Hispanics in Higher Education Techs. We are joined by a distinguished panel of higher education technology leaders, and we're so glad that they are here with us. Let me introduce you to the panel. The first one is Rafael Espinosa. He's the CIO at Cal State University Stanislaus. Good friend and colleague, Rafael, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Next up is Faust Gorham, CIO at CSU Bakersfield. My good friend and colleague. Faust, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
And Yubalkis Montalvo, Executive Director of the Hispanic Educational Technology Services. We've had a long-standing relationship with the Hispanic Educational Technology Services, and our students, faculty, and staff have greatly benefited by our relationship with HETS. Welcome, Yubalkis.
Thank you. Un saludo desde Puerto Rico. Welcome. Oh, thank you so much for this invitation.
You're welcome. Moderating this morning is Karina Alvarado from the Vice President's Office, who has worked with our leadership team and our entire ITS team to pull this TechFest 2020 together. Karina, welcome.
Thank you. All right, so we'll get started. Parker, you can go ahead and collapse the screen. Perfect. So what we'll do today is we have a set of 6 questions for our panelists, and we will try to get through all of them, and we will allow for the audience to ask questions via Q&A at the end of the session. So I ask that you pose your questions in Q&A, and if you want a specific panel member to answer a specific question, please note that in the question. So for the sake of order, we will start by the order on my screen, which is, we'll start with Faust, and then Rafael, and then Yubalkis, and then we'll go the other way around. So what we'll do now is we'll start with Faust, and Faust's first question, please tell us about your areas of responsibility.
Okay, great. So I'm the Associate Vice President and Chief Information Officer here at CSU Bakersfield, and I run Information Technology Services, which is everything from applications, all the way over to websites, right? So it's what we probably all have in our portfolio. In addition to that, over the last 9 months, I've been running facilities management services. So that's roads and grounds, custodial, all the trades, everything but capital construction for the campus as well.
Thank you, Faust. Rafael, could you tell us about your area of responsibility?
Sure, that's very interesting, Faust, that you've taken over facilities.
Yep.
I think of my areas of responsibility as twofold. The one area is functional operational area, which involves desktop support, cybersecurity, infrastructure, data center, information services, which is development and enterprise-wide systems, learning management systems, the academic technology, all of the day-to-day operations, telephones, fiber, wireless, all of those services. The other area that I am primarily involved with, and which I really enjoy, is working with leadership, right? We work on strategy, the future, where we're going to be in 5 years, innovation, smart campus, really the things that you want to kind of plan out and work with leadership concerning resources in the future. So those are the 2 areas that I like to think of my bucket.
Thank you, Rafael. Yubalkis, would you tell us about your area?
Yes, of course. Again, thank you for this invitation. I'm delighted to join this panel with my colleagues and also with the students in this IT Tech Fest 2020. To give you an overview, I have joined HETS Consortium for 20 years as the executive assistant. I started first, and then in 2006, I was designated as the executive director. HETS is a consortium of more than 40 member institutions located in Puerto Rico, where our main office are at the Inter-American University in San Juan, Puerto Rico, but also we have a lot of institutions in the States like California State University, San Bernardino, and also in Latin America, and also some corporate partners. Our main roles for me as the director is to visit HEADS member institutions to present and promote the HEADS services that are mainly online, including these services include face-to-face and online trainings, educational events, publications like a peer review journal that we have about how to integrate technology into higher education. This is a peer review journal that we manage the process of that. Also, we have a portal that is called Virtual Plaza, which at the Student Placita, we manage from the head's office to maintain this totally updated and that the services provided there are totally accessible. These services include access to databases for job searches, internships, scholarship search, practice more than 200 standardized tests like the NCLEX, GRE, and LSAT that actually I'm gonna be doing a live presentation later today. So I invite you to come and see. And also on the other side, my main role also include the coordination of the board of director meetings that board of directors are constituted by the presidents of all the institution, and actually Dr. Tomas Morales is one of our board members and also one of the heads executive officers. And these meetings are held twice a year. I also manage the budget and the administrative area and contact all of our member institutions and invite others to join the heads family.
Can I ask you to come and work for me? You have so many, doing so many things.
Well, I love California.
Thank you so much, Ivakis. So we'll start off on this next question with Rafael, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So what has helped you get to where you are, and what advice would you have for others who want to set off in a similar field?
What has helped me get to where I am at? To be perfectly honest, I have been very opportunistic. Every time a opportunity showed itself, I decided to go ahead and take that opportunity. Very often I failed, right? But then I would get back up and go and move forward with those opportunities. The one thing that I would suggest to all that are listening, all of you who are trying to decide what to do in the future, especially if you're interested in information technology. I have two older boys, and they were both very interested in computer science because Dad was doing it, right? And they took completely different paths. But what they did, and this is what I really suggest strongly to all of you, is they tried everything. My oldest son went into cybersecurity, he went into development, he went to websites, he went into project management. He tried all of those things while he was at school, different internships constantly. And I told him to find a mentor, someone who could give him advice, someone who he could ask questions of. You know, I try to mentor them, of course, and answer their questions and try to guide them, but I'm Dad. So it's much more important when you hear it from somebody else, some outside source. And he finally decided, he graduated from the University of Chicago with a degree in computer science, but also in economics. So now he's currently working for two companies doing product development, project management, and he's earning over 200K. He's 26. I'm very, very proud of him, right? My other son did something very similar. He's at Stanford. He went to 2 or 3 or 4 different internships, tried all those things. He was a computer science major also, completely different path. He went cybersecurity and project management, did all of those things. He ended up with an applied physics master's and a computer science degree, and he found a mentor, and now he's going to go get his PhD in earth sciences. So I strongly suggest that you find a mentor that you can ask questions of, try many different flavors of information technology, because there are so many different areas to focus on. And you may not find what you like, but you will definitely find the things you don't like. And that will help guide you going forward.
Thank you, Rafael.
Mm-hmm.
Austin, can I get your thoughts on this question?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's a couple of things as Rafael was talking that I think are very similar for me, which is, you know, I call it a disposition to change. right, as opposed to opportunistic, right? But I think it's very much the same thing, which is I've never been afraid of taking on something new, a new community, a new area, a new part, right? Because that is how you grow, and growth is not just about success, right? Growth is also about meeting new challenges, failing, learning from that, and then continuing to grow or evolve from that, right? The second thing I think that's been very important for me is drive, and that is just like don't give up, right? Have that positive mindset, continue moving forward, continue on that trajectory, try many different things. You know, Rafael, you mentioned that about your children, right? My kids are all really young right now, but I'm trying to do the exact same thing with them, right? You know, go out, try this sport, try that sport, try music. You want to try ballet? Try ballet. Let's go. Like, what's the worst that can happen, right? Is just finding out what you don't like, and then you can try to focus on what you do like, where your strengths are. And then finally, I think the mentorship piece is so important. And you know what I would want to tell others is, you know, network, give back to your association. So join those associations, give back to your associations, find your mentors, and then be willing to be a mentor. These are all things that are so important to help build our community, right? And our community, you know, and I'll be perfectly frank, right? It's, you know, we have to figure out how to talk through the pipeline issues that we have as technologists. Right? We have to figure out the diversity, the equity, and inclusion around our organizations. We have to figure out how to build these pipelines so that they're wide and open and accessible to everyone. And that we do that by, you know, networking, giving back, finding people, and growing them. Right? So I'll stop there.
Thank you so much. Bucky, what would you like to tell others?
Well, in my case, sorry, I definitely think that education is key to take you anywhere you want, especially in this field. In my case, I study a bachelor's and a master's degree in public relations, nothing to do with that. And currently, I am finishing my doctor's degree in leadership in education and distance learning to validate more than 20 years of experience in how to integrate technology in higher ed. That is what I'm doing in HEDS. So also extracurricular activities like participating in student organizations at my church and other social activities help me develop skills like public speaking, problem solving, manage a budget, among others. I started, as I mentioned before, as an executive assistant and public relations officer that time, but I believe that what has helped me to get where I am now is never being afraid to work hard, to be open to accepting challenges, and be eager to learn and get surrounded by people that can be a role model for me. I learned, in my experience, I learned a lot from the HED's former director and my former boss. I met her when she was my professor at one of my master's degree courses, and she hired me to work with her. Although at that time, I didn't have any experience in higher education and technology at all, and distance learning, I convinced her on my job interview that I was a fast learner, committed to work hard, and the best candidate for the position, and she believed me. So she hired me. And when I started back in 1999, I was not afraid to ask for help and more information when I need to complete my task on time. This worked for me, and I truly advise all students in this field of any other field to follow your dreams. Never give up, as Faust and Rafael mentioned before. Ask for help and always be around people that can be your mentor, like Rafael mentioned too. Also, it's important to learn what are your strengths, to highlight it and work on your weakness. For example, at that time when I was hired, I was not fully bilingual. And for HEDS, it's very important to be fully bilingual because the majority of our members are in the States. And at that time, I enrolled in a course to improve my English. And finally, it's important to be a great team partner, be respectful, always honest, punctual, responsible, grateful, and willing to help others. That's my advice.
Thank you so much, Yulakis and Faust and Rafael, for those very helpful pieces of information that I'm sure students and the whole audience in general will appreciate. So a couple of you touched on this already, but what drives you in terms of your career? What are your main drivers, right? Let's start with Faust.
Sure. So I've had two kind of major parts of my career, right? So there's been the higher education piece, and then there's been the corporate piece. And I found corporate to just be highly dissatisfying for me personally, which was it was all about money. Everything we talked about, right? Every .com we worked with, every venture capital firm we worked with, it was all money, 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 money. Well, what good are we doing? Well, we're making money for these people, for that people. That's great, right? And obviously we all appreciate money and what it can do, and it gives us a lot of comfort and allows us to do many things. But that's not what really was driving me. And so I spent very few years in corporate, and I spent most of my career in higher education. And at first it was at the UC system. And I loved working in the UC system. It was all about research, and it was about creating more PhD students, and that is awesome as well. But it wasn't until I got to the CSU that I found, I think for me, what really mattered. And what that is that socio-economic change that we make in our students, or localized to my community that I'm here in Bakersfield and in County. But you come to a CSU, you come to Bakersfield, you get your degree, you focus, you build your network, and your socio-economic difference that you can make for yourself, for your family, and your community, because most of our graduates stay here, is just awesome. And that's what drives me. So that for me is my why, right? This is a generational transformation process that we're doing, and it's gonna, it pays off dividends. And so that's why I invest my time here at Bakersfield.
Nice. Thank you, Faust. Raphael, what drives you?
So it's very interesting what Faust was saying. I can very much relate. I came from a Catholic family. I was raised as a Catholic, right? And my parents instilled in me this notion that everything I had, everything, my talents, my skill, my intelligence, the food on the table, the roof over my head was a gift, right? It was a gift from them, it was a gift from the community. If you're religious, it was a gift from God, right? And what I did with all those talents, what I did with all of those resources, what I did with that gift was my gift back, right? That's how it was always framed to me. And that's the way I've always thought. I've never thought about going into corporation or into industry. The first 20 years of my career, I was a molecular cytogeneticist doing cancer research because I love biology and cancer and science and research. And I had 90 peer-reviewed publications, and I, similar to Faust, did a lot of research to benefit a lot of people. Towards the end of that portion of my career, I started doing bioinformatics, right? Started creating databases and websites to collect patient data, decided to do it more broadly for a broader group of people instead of just myself and a small set of researchers. And then that just naturally progressed into becoming CIO at Stan State, right? I was at the University of Chicago for 30 some years, and then I was recruited out to the CSU, Stan State. And much to what Faust was just saying, making transformative changes for people and giving them the opportunity and to mentor those students is incredibly rewarding, because you're giving back and you're making a huge impact on those people's lives. I was the first person in my family to go to college. I went to Northwestern, and that had an amazing impact on not only my immediate family, but my parents, my brother, my extended family, because then there was somebody there who had gone through the system and knew, and they all of a sudden realized they could do it too, right? And then they started to achieve. So being an example, trying to be a mentor, trying to give back to the community, trying to be impactful and to make a difference, right, is what I think is really important. And, a little bit, we touched on this a little bit earlier, not being afraid to fail, because I have failed many times, but you learn from that failure and you continue and you grow and you give back to the community.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Ivalpis, what drives you?
Yes, totally agree with Rafael and folks. Believe in my organization missions to promote, support, and increase the capabilities of member institutions like California State University San Bernardino to enhance Hispanic Latino student success and opportunities in higher education. I always emphasize that although heads focus are Hispanic, our services are for all of them. And especially services for students are totally free of charge. So definitely for me, this is a most to promote students to learn how to use it so they can take full advantage of it. I feel blessed, like Rafael mentioned, to be part of the rapid development of new technologies and promote effective ways to integrate it in education to support students on their academic goals. In this new scenario, because of this pandemic, technology has been key to allow institutions to continue offering their courses and services in a safe way. And we are in HEADS, we are pleased to help and support these efforts. And now more than ever, as director of HEADS, what drives me is the chance to provide essential services as a pioneer organization in the use of technology in higher education with enormous expertise and services ready to be used by the students and the academic communities. So that's drives me every day I'm trying to see how we can continue promoting those services and getting the access to the students so they know that they can count on us, especially in these difficult times.
Thank you, Ivalpis. And a short plug, we will have a HETS presentation at 11 a.m. students, so stay tuned for that. So our next question, which you all kind of touched on a bit, but what is one piece of practical advice you'd give to someone thinking about starting out in this field? We'll start with you, Rafael.
Sure. So I think we touched on this a couple of times already, right? Find a mentor, right? Find somebody who can help you answer questions and help you guide. You may not listen to that mentor all the time, but at least there's somebody to talk to and somebody to try to bounce ideas off of. The other thing Faust and I both touched on earlier was being opportunistic. But what I would tell people is be brave, not perfect. Be prepared to fail and be resilient. If you fail, it's okay. Go on to the next thing. Find the next opportunity. Take that failure as a lesson, learn from it, and then grow from it and be resilient. Continue to do that. The third piece of advice, very practical advice, I mentioned this earlier with my example of my sons, is try different things. One of the things that I noticed here when I came to the CSU, and I don't know, it's because if they don't have enough internships or they haven't been mentored enough, but the students' perspectives are very narrow, right? I was talking to many of the students and I said, what do you want to do? And we consistently, there were, I want to be a teacher, I want to be this, I want to be that, I want to be the other thing. Instead of, I want to study this field, I want to go into this area. They were very specific about exactly what they wanted to, what kind of job they wanted to get at the end of their 4 years. And I tried to tell them, stop for a second, aim high, right? Your goal after you get out of college is not to get a job, right, and to start earning money, right? If you're studying history and paralegal and you want to be a lawyer, aim to be a Supreme Court justice, right? You want to aim as high as you possibly can. And then if you miss and you fail, so you end up on the appellate's court, right? Or maybe you end up as a senator, right? So I really, at a very practical level, try lots of different things. Don't be afraid to fail and be resilient.
Thank you, Rafael. Ross, your thoughts on practical advice?
This is I think Rafael said it perfectly, right? And for me, in my career, in my education, part of it is I don't want any student listening right now to take what I did as the right path, because it is definitely not the right path from any educational standpoint. So
I agree with that.
I got to UC Davis. Yeah, I switched like majors like 6 times. It took me forever to graduate with my undergraduate degree. And all that time, so going exactly to what Rafael just said, all that time I was learning what I didn't like, or what I started to figure out was what I was good at, right? And so, I started out as an aeronautical engineer, hated chemistry. But I liked the computer science classes, right? I liked Fortran, I liked Pascal. I jumped into music. I hated music theory, but I liked performing, right? I like being out in front of people. I like communicating. I like talking about things, right? I'm a trumpet player by background. So I started to figure out, okay, look, here's my natural dispositions, right? I like the thought process around computer science. I like the communication aspects around interpersonal, right? Groups. I like the synchronicity of being a musician with other musicians. I had good personal hygiene, so I didn't like part of the musician thing. No, just kidding. But but I started to learn about what I didn't like as I was trying to really figure out what I did like, and I took chances. Right, I started out as a lab technician, working in the computer lab. Back then, you had one person in the computer lab, as opposed to now you have like 50. 50 labs, and one person rotates through them, or they're all, no people are in them. But back then we had a person in each lab, and I started there. Then I went into training. Then I went into, research, and then, so I just kept moving around, and all that helped me figure out then, hey, I'm pretty good at this IT thing, right? And let me now start focusing more and more on that. And that is kind of what you have to do. Take those risks, take the chances, figure out what you're good at, what you're not good at. Focus on those strengths, right? Enrique said it as well, right? There are certain things that you have to be able to do to get to where you want to go. My previous boss called it a check mark. You got to get certain check marks in order to be able to continue to advance. Not to downplay those things, they are important, but sometimes you just have to be able to do that. So you got to get there, and that's my practical advice.
Thank you. Yvakis, would you like to share practical advice?
Yes, of course. I'm totally agree with my colleagues here. And as I mentioned before, my original plans were a public relations, so nothing to do with what I'm doing. Although it have some kind of, you have to be to communicate well. That definitely helped me a lot. But when I started 20 years ago, technology was not as advanced as today. So to those who want to start in this field now, I recommend that you do it, since you are in a perfect timing for this. The continuous development of new technologies and the global situation with the pandemic contribute to increase the need for ITs to help any type of businesses, organizations, and institutions to survive and continue offering their services, as you may see on the news every time. This is I think this is the time to get prepared and enrich your academic profile. That's my advice, with new experience that can help you obtain a better job. And if you can do, for example, an internship or voluntary work in your community related to your field, that could be awesome. And it will be an asset when you go to an interview. So definitely, I think this is a perfect timing to start or finish your academic goals in this field.
Thank you, Yvakis. So we'll go to Rafael now with this next question. Do you remember a specific experience where you wish that you or your organization had done something differently? If you were to do it over, what would you change?
Oh, there's so many.
Agreed.
Right? Let's see, at University of Chicago, when I was there, I was in the biological sciences division, right? So I kind of combined biology and research and IT. And we have 9,500 employees, right? 900 faculty. And at that time, we had 13 different departments. There were 4 active directories. I don't know if everyone's familiar with that, but that's 4 different systems, similar systems, but they were different, unique, that were directories on our division, with 6 different email addresses, right? and all of these people who were disconnected, all of these different departments that were disconnected. So I started a project to bring them all into one consolidated Active Directory, one consolidated back office infrastructure, right? And we worked on this for a year and a half, and I was working very closely with all of the IT directors. We set up cybersecurity and all the technical pieces. We brought all these different domains and forests together, working very hard on it. And we were on the verge of publishing it and implementing it. And the mistake I made was that I did not directly communicate with the leadership of those different departments. I had assumed that the directors from all of those different departments were informing their leadership, and they were not. And we got to a point where all of a sudden, all of the chairmen and the deans and the administrators said, "Whoa, wait a second, what are you talking about? We're not doing this." It took me almost a year. We had a backpedal. It took me almost a year to reorganize, to set up a governance structure, to set up the proper committees, to set up the proper approval processes before we could move forward again. And I wouldn't say it was a waste, because it was an incredible learning experience. But now, as Faust can tell you, I reach out to everybody. We reach out to leadership. Any project that we do, we reach out to leadership, we reach out to our constituents, we reach out to all of our technical people. I make absolutely sure everybody's aware of what we're doing and how we're doing it. Because not only, you know, when I did that project, there was a little bit of arrogance there, because I kind of thought, okay, I'm the technical person, I know what we should be doing. And I didn't listen to our customers, or I didn't even think to ask our customers, right? Now I'm in a situation where I'm always asking our customers. We're always talking to leadership. We're always planning, and I would say that's a bigger portion of my role than the actual technical people, because technical projects. Because I have a lot of really smart technical people who know a whole lot more than I do now. What I do is organize and communicate. So burnt once, never do that again.
Thank you, Rafael. We'll go over to Yubakis. Do you want to share an experience?
Yes, of course. Well, I like Rafael many things, but right now that we are in the middle of this pandemic, we are offering webinars and virtual events to support students, faculty, and administrators in this new virtual environment. And I wish, as an organization, we could start this before, so we could be more prepared for this unexpected crisis. Because I was reflecting that sometimes we think, especially faculty and administrators, that we have time to learn and implement technology at our own pace, because we feel comfortable the way we are and do not like to change the way we do things sometimes. I don't know if that happens in your institutions as well.
Oh,
but definitely, yeah. But definitely, although we are very, we were very enthusiastic about promoting new technologies and sharing best practices related to these issues, I definitely have to confess that we could do more before to get prepared for this.
Thank you, Yubaki. Faust,
Yes.
share an experience?
Yeah, you know, I like Rafael and others. I think every person can say, "Man, I wish I would have done something a different way." And as we are in these roles as CIOs, I think that number grows exponentially. Like it's, you know, there's thousands of things I wish I would have done differently. But I'm going to jump away a little bit from the work side to the more personal side, which is, you know, there's one thing that I used to do, which was, I think, a problematic part of my mindset, which is I always used to think I could do it better, right? Oh man, that decision, that was not the right decision. You know, I could have done that better. You know, if only they would have included X or Y or Z or me, right, in those things. And so that mindset was a really bad mindset when I was younger in my career, coming up through through the leadership. And so, we work in an environment in higher education, and it's different in other types of industries where it's about shared governance, right? And with shared governance, to what Rafael said, you have to involve all the right stakeholders. You have to be able to involve our faculty, our senior administrators, our staff, right? You have to be able to involve everyone as you go around and try to introduce change, right? Unless you're the only domain owner of something, right? I mean, if it's a little internal application, sure, you could change that, but you still better be talking internally about the effect that that's going to have. So that's one thing. And then the final personal thing I just want to share is, I wish I would have started my advanced schooling a lot sooner. Like I mentioned, I was a terrible undergraduate student, and that set me back, and that gave me a really bad taste in my mouth about advanced education. I'm like, ooh, what if I'm a bad student again? So finally, like 4 years ago, I started my master's, got that done. Right now, I'm starting my doctorate, and I'm a little bit on the older side already, right? But I'm starting it, and I'll get through that as well, hopefully. And I think that is just one thing that I wish I would have done when I had many less pressures than I do today. Right?
Thank you, Bob.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll start with you, Rafael, on the last question, which is a two-part question. So what effect has the COVID-19 pandemic made on higher ed tech? So if you could share your thoughts on that. What do you see as the biggest challenge, and what are the most critical changes that we must make to face the future effectively post-COVID?
So what are the major impacts of COVID, right?
Yes.
So I think it's been a real wake-up call. I think a lot of people, especially in the tech industry, thought we were prepared, that we had it all, we had all the answers, we knew what was going on. And this pandemic has really made a lot of people rethink the way they do things, right? I think a major impact on our campus, of course, everybody's online, distance learning. It's been very disruptive. And there's a concept in technology called disruptive technologies, right? A new innovation comes along and changes everything, right? And it happens over and over and over again. Uber is a perfect example. New York City, a taxi medallion would cost $300,000, right? Uber came along, and all of a sudden they were worth $50, right? It was just like the values and the mindset completely changes. What the pandemic has done, and I won't touch on any of the horrible things the pandemic has done, but it has really forced leadership on one level to look at their IT in a completely different light. Previously, my IT group was the only group on campus that was allowed to telecommute because we trusted them and because I forced the issue, right? Now everyone is telecommuting, and everyone is more productive. They don't have to drive to campus for an hour. They don't have to drive home for an hour. There's all that, much less traffic, much more time, personal time for these people, and they appreciate being able to work from home. And now they're much more productive than they were before. And I don't think that they were more productive as individuals. I think they just had more time, right? They had less time moving back and forth, so they could devote more time. Telecommuting is just one aspect that has really changed everything. The other thing is that our professors and our faculty have really reassessed the importance of technology and also their own pedagogies, right? They're used to standing up in front of a blackboard or a whiteboard and lecturing to their students. And I think some of those faculty have decided to retire, and many more faculty are embracing the technology and the ability to reach many more students and in a very effective, efficient way. We're changing our learning management system. Faculty are changing their pedagogies. They're exploring new ways, new course materials. All of that is just growing exponentially. I have people asking me about technology that they've never heard of before, and they're trying, hey, can we try this? Can we try that? Everybody's trying to innovate now. I tell my managers, the people that report to me, let no crisis go to waste, right? Now is a perfect time to make the changes that we've been talking about for such a long time because now people are embracing technology. They see the value, they see it as a tool to get to the resources that they need to do their work that they want, to do the research that they need to do. So I feel horrible about the pandemic, and at the same time, it's really brought a lot of innovation and disruptive technologies and opportunities for many, many people, students, faculty, and staff. So that's my take.
Thank you, Rafael. It's funny you say that because Vice President Sadaker has actually coined the term pandemic of opportunities, right? So I think we're all thinking along those lines.
Yep.
Faust, would you share your thoughts on the impact of COVID on higher ed tech challenges and changes?
Yeah. So to put it into a kind of a frame here is the IT organizations are well regarded. I mean, we're good partners. We've been this across higher ed. This has kind of been the thing, but I'm sure if somebody were to do a study, if you go back to March or April, IT organizations probably received the most number of awards from their campuses. Again, I'm just going to speak about higher education than at any other time ever in higher education technology, right? I mean, academic senates recognized leaders. ASI, our associated students recognized, cabinet. I mean, it was all about the ITS organization. And I think while there was a lot of things that we had to learn, the resiliency of these groups came through. I mean, the effort that's been put in to grow people as professionals, the technology investments that we've been doing, and most of the organizations, most of higher ed organizations made it through to the other end. What we start seeing though is the biggest challenge, and again, these things are regionalized or localized, right? So I'm really speaking about Bakersfield now a little bit more. Is technology equity is one of the single largest challenges we have, right? And this means everything from access, throughput, environment, like where are students studying? Where do our faculty try to provide classes from, right? I mean, I'm in meetings where there's 2 screaming kids going behind a faculty member, right? And that's life now, right? And they're trying to deliver, well, at least this meeting, but I can only imagine that's their class, right? So environment, education, and probably the biggest piece is motivation, right, around this. So in other words, we have a hotspot challenge, we have a bandwidth problem, challenge, we have an access challenge, we have a money challenge. So these are all things that are happening now, and it affected faculty and students severely in March of 2020, and it continues to affect our students today. Our faculty have, happened to catch up dramatically, but our students are still affected. And each year we have a new class coming in, that maybe is being provided something from their, from 9 through 12 now, and so maybe they have more capability, but there's now going to be this achievement gap that's going to start to happen, and that we're going to have to come over, right, or overcome. So that's kind of what I see as the biggest challenge. Do you want us to address part B now?
Yes, if you can share some thoughts on that.
Man, so this one's a big one, right, for me, just because I probably have more questions than answers. So how are campuses going to change after this? There's faculty who don't want to come back to campus, who are still worried about the virus, right, who want to continue to deliver synchronous and asynchronous classes. What does that do to our students? I think we're going to have a huge increase in the number of online classes that are offered now, either synchronous or asynchronous. What does this mean to our physical plants and campus buildings? As I mentioned, I run the facility side of the house, right? So we've made these billion-dollar investments in our physical plants, assuming, and this new growth, right? San Bernardino's been blessed with all this new growth that has happened, and now that's empty, conditioned space that still has to be maintained that costs money. So what happens when we have these new opportunities online where people aren't on campus anymore? What does it mean to our athletics areas, right? Is esports going to start to dominate, in new ways that we haven't seen, right? How do we get large gatherings? What do we do to these traditional ceremonies that we've had as higher education? And then, at least in California, right, we're seeing kind of how the crisis has been met. What happens the next time we have a crisis? How are we? I mean, is this just going to continue every couple of years, every 10 years, right? Is that the last time we had a big crisis like this? What's the new appetite for risk or tolerance, and I mean, people are dying. This is horrible, right? So how do we ever step back from this new set or approach that we're going to take? And so, as Rafael mentioned, what this means for us is we have to continue to build that resiliency and that tolerance for change in different ways. So we have to continue to figure out how to give that access and motivation and make sure we don't lose students because they're not comfortable with this online situation. So we got to figure out how to address all that. So mostly questions, not great answers.
Thank you, Pam.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
I totally agree with Rafael and Faust, and definitely there is a lot of questions that we don't know the answers yet. But in terms of the biggest challenges for me, since I work with faculty and also students and administrators, I think one of the biggest is the challenge is the lack of knowledge on how to use technology in an effective, inclusive, and strategic way. Also, this pandemic wasn't in any plan and in any budget of any institution. So this makes things more difficult since was something that no one expects. So you have to be creative how to handle all these new, how to offer not only the courses, but the services, all the process that happens when you go to an institution. And definitely technology sometimes is expensive and I'm very worried about the gap between the ones who have the resources and the ones who don't have those resources, and this gap can increase significantly. And it's important for me as part of the challenges to try to identify and help those who can be left behind for not having the resources needed to adjust to this new academic scenario. And I don't know in the States, but in Puerto Rico includes not only students, but also teachers, professors, administrators that doesn't have the facilities as well. Also in Puerto Rico, not only we have this issue with the equipment, also with the internet. Our typography, we are an island, but in the middle is mountains. So depending where the internet antenna is, you probably don't get the access as neat as others. So this is another issue that we need to address because it doesn't matter if you have all the services online if you don't have access to it. So for me, that's one of the biggest challenges in terms of technology. In terms of the most critical changes that we must make to face for the future, I think in how to create, I'm always trying to be optimistic and positive, and I always think that the crisis is an open door to create new opportunities. So I think to create opportunities for this crisis, like identifying the best technologies that can be tailored to our needs. This is the perfect timing to see how works and how doesn't. And the best resources, we have a lot of internal resources, human resources, and other resources in our campuses that sometimes doesn't, we didn't notice because everybody's on their own business. But now that everybody's paying attention, probably we can definitely identify these best, like the best professors, the best administrators, the best people that now know how to handle technology and can be a support to our offices to implement different technologies, and also these resources can complement the online services already in place that almost all institutions have that can offer extra help to low-income students. And we can learn from the best resources that we have internally, as I mentioned before, and from other institutions. This is a time to share our experiences and our best practices. We don't have to invent the wheel. We can look to others. And for example, in California, that you are a system of 23 universities, you can share what helped. And these kind of events are perfectly for that. And also work with our corporate providers and partners, because sometimes they have the answers to our questions, and also they are willing to make a positive impact in the education in their STEM field. And I believe that definitely technology is here to stay, and we can either learn how to use it effectively or face the risk of disappearing for not adjust to the future post-COVID-19. So for you guys that are ITs, and in my case that I promote online services, is a perfect timing to validate the use of technology, how technology can be used in a very powerful way to help students with especially low incomes that are not able to come to the campus, students with discapacities also, because technology have a lot of resources to help students that doesn't have the different discapacities. So it's just to look the best way to integrate it and cover the needs of our students and our campus.
Thank you, Yulafis, and thank you to Fowles and to Rafael. So what we'll do now is we'll turn it over to the audience. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature, and we will ask panelists. If you want to hear from a specific panelist, please specify that in your question. Let's see. While we wait for additional questions to come in, I'd like to pose this to all panelists, and any of you can answer. You've shared what your different organizations are doing for preparations, but what has the pandemic taught you personally? If anybody has any additional thoughts, they'd like to share that.
So I think that the pandemic has taught me that you have to be flexible, agile, and adaptive, right? Nobody saw this coming. We were preparing to go to O365 for a variety of reasons, did things, and then when this came, we had to move quickly. We had to address issues immediately. Having a governance structure in place and having the resources that were flexible enough to pull off other projects to address this really allowed us to pivot quickly and to answer the call. So, you know, like Faust was saying, our faculty and leadership really appreciate how quickly the technology groups were able to pivot to address their needs. So I think that's one thing that's very important.
Yeah, I agree fully with Rafael on that. I mean, we had to be able to be that very responsive, calm organization, and internally, right? If you can imagine, and I know this happened at CSUSB and at Stan State and all the other campuses and every campus, we had a new growing list of things we had to get done very quickly every morning. We'd have like just a quick, let's have a 10-minute meeting across the organization.
Right.
Okay, we're calm. We're saying, like, here's the 10 things we know we have to do, and we have 2 weeks to do this, 3 weeks to do this, 1 week to do this, right? And here's 2 new things that have come in. And yes, I know our list continues to grow, but guess what? We're getting it done. You're doing a great job. Continue executing as we have been. And we just had to continue to provide that calm leadership, both to our organization, but also to the entire campus, right? How are we possibly going to do this? We can. We just need to focus, understand what the issues are, move that forward, right?
Right. Take a deep breath and work.
Yeah.
Yes. Also, I want to add that we have been being grateful that this happened right now, because I imagine if that happened like 10 years ago when the LMS were starting and it was totally difficult to create a course. Now that the technology have moved forward and advanced a lot, and all the applications are very friendly user, that's the term, that is more easy, and also students have access to intelligent smartphones, cellulars, and almost everyone are used to this technology. So that was, I don't know, it was God, but it was a bless that happened right now in that time, because 10 years ago it will be a mess.
And adding to what Vicky just said, recuerda que pasó when Zoom, when we started the first day of class for our K through 12 students and Zoom cracked. All of a sudden it was like, oh my, ¿qué pasó?
Yeah.
What's going on here? We're going to make it, right?
Definitely. So we have to be grateful for these technology companies that have been doing their work too, as well as the institutions.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for spending the morning with us. We all appreciate all your insightful answers and meaningful pieces of advice. If you have any last thoughts, we can hear them now. Otherwise, thank you so much, and we hope you can join us for additional sessions today. And you we will see you at 11.
Karina, thank you so much for moderating. Sam, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here with your campus. I really enjoyed my time here with you, Becky's, and with Rafael. Rafael, I didn't even know you were published 84 articles. Oh my God, you're brilliant, man. Awesome, congrats.
So I'm very old.
You don't look like. Please pass me the contact of your surgery doctor.
I just want to say, Sam, thank you for inviting us, right? But it is October, and it is Oktoberfest, and I do expect a beer and a brat, and maybe some candy because it's Halloween, and
Yeah, trick or treat.
That's right.
Yeah. And for me, I was last year face to face with you guys in this event. It's a shame that today I couldn't travel because of COVID, but I hope that probably next year. But thank you again for inviting me, and it's always a pleasure to be with you and sharing with Rafael and folks. Thank you so much. And Karina, thank you for your moderating skills. Very well.
Thank you.
Right. Have a great day, panelists.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.
Okay, so audience, we will be starting shortly with the next presentation.